Welcome in to Outkick, the show, Thursday edition. I'm coming to you live a little bit later today because I wanted to make sure that I watched the XFL press conference live. The XFL is back. Party like it's 2001, whatever year it was that the XFL was out and rolling in the NFL competition space. We're going to dive directly into that. Lots to get to, but I want to start by telling you that you need to go to Oddshark. Go to oddshark.com to get all of the info that you need for the upcoming Super Bowl, gambling, prop bets, over-unders, everything that you need is right there. Go to oddshark.com for all your gambling and informational related needs. And on top of that, do you have credit card debt? Are you losing money? Do you need to get out there and turn a 4% rate into a 2% rate? Go to thehomeloanexpert.com. Let them hook you up with the best possible mortgage nationwide. You tell them Clay Travis sent you. I'll give you a full year of Outkick VIP when you close with them. Go to thehomeloanexpert.com. Okay, let's go right into the XFL announcement. Several things that I want to hit off the top, if you missed it, that Vince McMahon said in particular. He said that, and I'm going to read this direct quote, he said that the players will stand for the national anthem. There will be no politics or social issues associated with the league at all. That has become a huge weakness of the NFL, and it makes sense to attack right there. He also said his goal was to have 8 teams to play a 10-team league, 4 playoff teams, semifinals, and then a championship. Playing, I disagree with this, in the winter, right after the NFL season ends. He said that he wants it to be a family-friendly league. He wants no cheerleaders. And this is actually really controversial, and I think that he was wrong on this, but it ties in with that presumption. He said he will only sign players with no arrest record, which I think is the wrong way to go because it raises all these different complicating factors. I think you make the decision that you maybe don't sign people with recent violent arrest records maybe, but he said particularly if you get a DUI, you're not eligible to play in the league. I think it's just a bad idea because how do you handle it once the season starts if a player gets a DUI? Are they immediately kicked out of the league? Does a starting quarterback for a team not get to finish the season? I understand the idea of wanting to go out and get guys who are good citizens, but I think that's the only one of the rules that I thought was particularly bad. Here's the deal. I should be the commissioner of this league. I wrote back in December when this news initially broke about what I would do if I were remaking the XFL. I said I would play the season from mid-June to late August. I think the smart way to go here is to not play a new football league right after the football season ends. I understand that some of you out there may be so desperate for football that you want to go straight from the Super Bowl into the XFL. To me, by the time football season ends, as exciting as it is, I'm ready for a break from football and to move into the other sports. I like paying attention to college basketball. I like getting ready for the NBA playoffs. But by June, when summer gets here, I'm much more interested in football already, and I have to wait until August or September for football to return. Why not be the appetizer to the NFL and college football season as opposed to being the postscript? I think if there's not a good quality of play, then going straight from the NFL playoffs to the XFL, that division of quality of play and also interest level will be more substantial. So he says he's not going to do it until 2020. I would not do this until then. And so I think that makes the most sense. All right. I think that makes the most sense by far. Here's the other thing I would do, which hasn't been discussed at all. I would set it up. Make it a summer league. But here's the other thing I would do. I think you have to go out and sign freshmen and sophomores straight out of college. Now, I think this is important for a couple of reasons. One, the NFL requires you to be 3 years removed from college. So what would players say if you could go sign them, like Johnny Manziel was a redshirt freshman who won the Heisman Trophy. What would happen if you went and signed Johnny Manziel right after his redshirt freshman season and brought him to the NFL? There would have been an awful lot of interest in that. What about Tua? What about Tua right now? He would theoretically be eligible to get drafted. Is it possible that he would take several million guaranteed to go to the XFL? I think that makes a tremendous amount of sense. That's where I would attack the NFL on waiting 3 years to get their players eligible. I think it would make a lot of sense. The other thing, I think this goes in with my decision about the fact that you can't not sign guys who have criminal histories. I think you have to go out and sign star quarterbacks. Sign star quarterbacks like Johnny Manziel, Robert Griffin III, Tim Tebow. If he'll stand for the national anthem, Colin Kaepernick. If he won't, sign him. The minute he doesn't stand for the national anthem, cut his ass. Is there a better way to get national media attention than for Vince McMahon to sign Colin Kaepernick to a contract saying that he's going to stand for the national anthem? If he takes a knee, you cut his ass right then and there. Boom. It's a major story. Everybody pays attention. It solidifies your base. Frankly, it's genius. I'm telling you, it's the way to go. He's going to do this. He agreed with this decision. Vince McMahon's going to own the entire league. I think the way to go in the future, if you were starting a new league, is single entity ownership. Instead of having a bunch of individual owners, why not own the league yourself? That gives you the opportunity to theoretically sell the league if it becomes successful to a bidder, whether it's Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, somebody out there, CBS, Fox, NBC. Whoever needs programming, partner with them and take some of the cost off the table. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think you do. There's been a lot of talk. If you want to make fans love your league, how about this? How about giving incentive-laden contracts? Here's my idea. How much would fans love this? Your average base salary, $100,000. If your team makes the playoff, $200,000. If your team wins the championship, you get $300,000. Obviously, quarterbacks and bigger names should be exemptions, like in MLS, where you can pay more for guys who might be coming over from EPL. That kind of situation, superstar level exemption salaries, maybe one for each team, but everybody else incentive laden the contracts so that when guys are trying to make the playoffs, they double their salary, they triple their salary if they win a title. 8 teams in cities that don't have NFL franchises now. I don't know if Vince McMahon is going to follow this, but I'd focus on cities that don't have NFL franchises right now, but would have stadiums. My ideas: Portland, San Diego, St. Louis. Go to places that just had NFL teams leave that are starved for football. Albuquerque, Louisville, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Raleigh, Durham, Memphis, Orlando, Oakland, Birmingham, Alabama. Probably missing some cities, but I would pick 8 of those cities as the locations. I would also, inside those stadiums, make concession stands as cheap as possible, a la what the Atlanta Falcons have done, and ideally play in stadiums that only seat like 25 or 30,000 fans, because then I think it's going to look better on television and have a better kind of setup. I said on my list, insist players stand for the national anthem. Vince McMahon has said he's going to do that. I like the idea of getting really aggressive and allowing fans to call plays via an XFL social media app that initially was free, that later you can end up charging for. And during the game, maybe once a quarter, fan clicks on a notification that comes to his phone or iPad or mobile device, and he or she gets 4 play options, like back in the day with Tecmo Bowl, and you get to pick one of those 4 play options. The team then runs the play option the most fans vote for. By year 2, you start to charge for the app. So you charge money for fans to be able to be involved in the decision-making process. I think that makes a ton of sense. Embrace gambling. Don't run from it. Don't hide from it. Make gambling an important part of the game. How cool would it be if instead of just a regular scoreboard, you also had a gambling scoreboard on the screen, tracking whether or not the over-under is going to hit, tracking whether or not one team is favored or not. You could have a separate gambling scoreboard in addition to the regular gambling scoreboard. I mean, a regular scoreboard that's up there. What about an actual gambling scoreboard that showed you, like, okay, if one team's favored by 7, what's the line look right now? What's the probability that one team is going to win or not? How about adjusting and carrying live lines, win probabilities, over-unders, adjusting based on scores? Eventually, sports gambling is going to be legal. Why not go ahead and get your fan base used to it instead of integrating it later and having everybody complain when suddenly gambling becomes a part of the sport? By 2020, I think gambling is going to be legal in many states. I love that aspect of things. Here's another thing that I think would make the game more fun. No field goals or extra points. Every team has to go for 2. And I love this idea. Once you cross midfield, you can't punt. I love the idea of eliminating punting and making teams go for it on 4th down. If you want to make it really, really wild, you could even say, how about eliminating the idea of punting for anything other than possessions where you're inside like your 25-yard line? That adds a lot of tension. It also would lead to more scoring. Pick non-traditional announcers. That's the other thing I would say. Bring in people who are going to sound different. Instead of going for the voice of God NFL idea, what about providing different calling options? You know how on a television screen you can pick Spanish, you can pick all these different languages, and in taking advantage of a second screen, I would do like a fan broadcast. I would do a gambling broadcast. I would do a traditional voice of God broadcast. I would do a funny broadcast. I would give fans the opportunity to tailor the audio that they hear to the particular type of game that they want. If you want to be entertained and hear somebody who makes you laugh, go find that broadcast. Maybe I would do a broadcast like that occasionally. Or you can have the traditional voice of God announcers. I would be a little bit different in the way that I put this all out there. Those are all my suggestions for what I would do with the XFL. So far, what I don't like from Vince McMahon is the games taking place in the winter right after the NFL ends. I don't think that makes sense. I think that's a bad time to do the league. And the other thing I don't like that doesn't make sense to me is the idea that if you have a criminal record, you can't play in the XFL. Who's going to look that up? First of all, when does the criminal record start? Is it at the age of 18? What if you have a criminal record from before you were old enough, but the record is out there publicly? Everybody can Google. I think it's stupid to think about setting up narc squads to run around and say, oh my God, this team has got a guy who got arrested. And also, what if you get arrested during the season? What if you get arrested during the season for something that you didn't do? Are you then immediately disqualified from the league? What if you had a Duke lacrosse type situation where at training camp, a guy's get a stripper who comes in and she accuses them of all raping her, even though it's not true? Are you going to kick 15 different guys off your team? I just think it's a bad option. I think it's set up poorly. I understand the idea of a family-friendly league and a non-political based league, but I just think that's a bad decision for the situation. And also, like somebody just said in the comments, how many WWE wrestlers have criminal records over the years? Sometimes guys are dumb. Look, sometimes guys make bad decisions when they're 18 or 19 years old. Why should that hamper them in being able to later make a living at the age of 24 or 25? I just don't think it makes a lot of sense. So, to me, he also said not, in particular, Donald Trump wouldn't be involved. The league's not launching till 2020, so crazily it will be launching right in the middle of a presidential campaign. But his wife is, Vince McMahon's wife is in the Trump cabinet. So, again, theoretically, this would mean that Johnny Manziel is not eligible to be in the league, for instance. And Johnny Manziel has already tweeted at Vince McMahon that he wants to be in the XFL. And I think you got to get a guy like Johnny Manziel in the XFL if you have that interest level. I mean, be honest with me. Who out there, especially if it was a summer game, but even if it wasn't a summer game, who out there wouldn't want to watch Tim Tebow play against Johnny Manziel? I mean, I would sign up for that right now. 2 quarterbacks, one Tim Tebow, the other Johnny Manziel. You need some sex appeal at the quarterback position. I think that that is integral. And again, I think that the NFL is right to be attacked on the too political front, but I also think the NFL is right to get attacked on the age restrictions. To me, those are the areas that the NFL is most vulnerable right now. Let the XFL go out and sign freshmen and sophomores. If a running back comes out and rushes for 1,500 yards as a freshman, have the XFL offer him to come and play for them, guaranteed money the next 2 years, and then they can decide whether to stay in the XFL or go to the NFL in the draft. I think that makes a large amount of sense. If you were a young player and you had just finished your freshman year, would you rather have several million guaranteed right then, or would you rather go back your sophomore and junior year and get your knee torn up? I just think it would make a lot of interesting decisions made. Plus, you would get so much media attention over the fact that you were offering these freshmen and sophomores. It would turn into a massive media story. I can already tell you, we're going to open Outkick the coverage tomorrow talking about the potential for the XFL. It's going to be a great first hour of the show, and I think you guys are going to absolutely love it. So I think the XFL needs to embrace technology, attack the NFL where it's weak. The other thing I said here, I would actually go more towards the entertainment side and not worry about the family side, because the WWE is great family entertainment, but it's not necessarily family appropriate entertainment, if you know what I'm talking about. Like the standards for broadcast continue to change. I let my kids watch the WWE and they love it. We watched Raw 25th anniversary episode. I'm a WWE shareholder. I wouldn't push towards the idea of having kids and families. I would push towards the idea of entertainment. And as part of that, I would let somebody, like all these controversies, I would resolve them with a judge. You know how right now stuff goes on behind closed doors and the NFL suddenly comes out and says, oh, you know what? We've decided that we're going to suspend A.J. Green for a half and not the full game, but we're going to suspend, whatever it is, right? Every suspension decisions. Rob Gronkowski's getting a game or 2 games or whatever the heck he got a game, and it all comes out and it gets leaked through the media. What if you had a public hearing to decide what you were going to do on every suspension? And what if you had a guy like me sitting up on the rostrum as the judge, and the player's agent or the player's representative or just a guy who's been deputized to represent the players all the time comes out and says, here's the play, Your Honor. We all watch it on the screen. Then that guy gets up and says, here's the reason I don't think he should be suspended. He's got a good history. He's never done this before, all these things. And then somebody representing the league, like Vince McMahon or whoever it is, gets up and makes the argument, you know what, the league believes that we should have a 2-game suspension for this. Here's why. The player's agent says no game suspension, and then you let somebody like me rule live on television. Tell me why that wouldn't be so awesome. The NFL does all this stuff not in the public eye. I would shine the spotlight on every controversy in the league and resolve it live on television. If Deflategate happens, I want the Deflategate trial to happen right smack dab there live on the television. If somebody gets accused of cheating, if somebody gets accused of doing something improper, I want all of it decided in public for everybody to watch. Tell me how amazing that would be, even if it's a serious issue. Now, my other thing I would do is I would take, instead of being what he's doing, talking about criminal issues, I would take all criminal issues off the table. I would say, if I were Vince McMahon, we are not getting involved like the NFL is in doing all these investigations into domestic violence and everything else. We are going to allow the judicial system to make the rulings there. Once that happens, then we'll decide whether or not there should be any punishment against a guy based on that. But I would not allow that to work. Somebody says, all right, what questions do you have? Somebody says there's not enough good pro football players for this to work. You're totally wrong. People don't watch football because the football is good. They watch football because the storylines are entertaining. The WWE isn't even real, and millions of people watch it every week because they do a great job of massaging the storylines and making you care about them. If you have good storylines and you put out an entertaining product, and that's why the quarterbacks matter. That's why I would let Johnny Manziel be the quarterback of my team named the Sinners, and I would make Tim Tebow the quarterback of my team named the Saints. And I would put good versus evil on the football field going head to head. I would try to sign Colin Kaepernick, and the moment he kneeled, I would fire his ass, and I would take all the social media criticism I could possibly handle. Attention is good for this league. Let it all roll in. Anytime somebody criticized the commissioner, I would bring them on live on the television show, and I would punish them if they talk out against the commissioner. All of these things I think would be phenomenal television. You guys, you X's and O losers, you focus on, oh, is the quality of the football going to be good? Well, how's the quality of the football? If you put AAA baseball players in Major League Baseball stadiums and put them in Major League Baseball uniforms, nobody would know the difference. If right now you took the top 32 college football teams and for a year you put them all on the NFL and you put them in NFL uniforms and the NFL guys weren't there, nobody would know the difference because the quality of play is different based on the league. In other words, no matter what the league is, there's some guys who are good, there's some guys who are not as good. You people out there who claim about talking about quality of play, you're a bunch of losers. You don't even understand what quality of play is. You tune in for the entertainment value, okay? That's why you tune in. You don't tune in because you love to see a well-executed pulling guard. You tune in to be entertained, okay? That's the truth. What other questions do we have? Less rules. I agree. Take away the stupidity of whether or not there's a catch. McMahon did get that right. He said they're going to play the game in 2 hours. He said there might not be a halftime. I think you could cut a lot of the fluff out of the NFL. NFL games last 3 hours. I think nowadays kids want a faster paced game. I like the idea of a 2 hour game. I think that makes a lot of sense. No marching bands. Get the marching bands out of here. There's no way they belong. No commercials. I don't think that's a bad idea. I think it could be a little bit like soccer, where you put in the situation where the World Cup has no commercials and it's just sponsored on the screen by a bunch of different products. I think in between plays, you could run like 15-second commercials. I think you could have teams sponsored by products. I think you could have the ability to have the field sold, like every 20 yards is sponsored by a different product. I think there are lots of ways that you could embed advertising into the game that would make a lot of sense that isn't requiring you to do the traditional commercial breaks. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that could be, I would be a great commissioner. I tweeted, I would be a great commissioner. This is actually a job I was made for. I think if I were the commissioner and I also had the show where I ruled based on the arguments that are being made, I think it would be an incredible success. I think you take that stuff out of the boardroom, you put it out in public. Clay Travis sits down at a judge's desk. Give me a gavel, just like the gavel that I've got right here. The gavel of justice on the XFL. Every Monday or Tuesday, we discuss all the controversies that happened before. I bring in officials. I can suspend an official or I can reward an official based on a great call. I have to make the officials answer for the decisions that they made. I think all of that in the public eye for everybody to see would be phenomenal. Would be amazing to bring the gavel of justice to the world of sports. I think I'd be good at it. Hate to brag, not the kind of guy to toot my own horn, but I think I have an incredible judgment. And so I think I would be very good if we had two different people making arguments. Would I invest in the league? Yeah, I would invest in the league. Right now, it's all going to be owned by Vince McMahon. But if I had the ability to invest in the league, yeah, I would. I told you guys yesterday I would invest substantially in WWE. I've been saying it for a couple of years. I've been buying that stock since it went all the way down, I think, to like $13. I bought it initially at $20. I've kept buying as it fell to $13. I've got a lot of shares of WWE because I believe, and it makes it even more likely now with the football league launching, I think the WWE is going to get bought out by somebody. Somebody's going to come around and buy the WWE, whether it's Fox, whether it's Netflix, whether it's Disney. Somebody's going to buy the WWE and roll it all in as a part of their overall brand strategy. And maybe that's Vince McMahon's exit from the WWE and pivot into the new football league. What cities and all those things, I think there are lots of places that would love to have it. I laid it all out. You can go check my Twitter feed at Clay Travis. I wrote a great deal about what I would do to make the XFL better, and I think there's a lot there to contemplate. I would go into cities that the NFL has recently abandoned that are desperate for football. I think that makes a lot of sense. Again, the situations that I would take care of if I were making these decisions, I would play the league starting in June, May, whenever in the summer. I would play the league. I would allow people with arrest records. I don't think that makes sense. And the other things that I laid out, I definitely would tell you to go check it out. if I were also, I don't think they'll do it because I think they're worried about New York and LA. I would focus this league on the middle part of the country, the places that love college football as opposed to the places that love the NFL. I think the lack of politics and the lack of social statements would be much better received there than they would be in other parts of the country. So that would be the avenue that I would prefer to chase. No, I wouldn't let players kneel during the anthem. I would fire them if they knelt during the national anthem. I don't believe that if you're in your uniform being paid by an employer that you should be able to advance politics if that's not your job. I don't think you should be able to do it at UPS, FedEx, Walmart, McDonald's, the United States government, if you are a police officer or if you're a military official. Nobody gets to make political statements in their uniform. It's an absurd concept, and the NFL has blown it there. And so I think that it makes zero sense. And I don't understand why people aren't smart enough to see this. Every other employee under the stars who is in a uniform is not allowed to do it. So why would I allow the XFL to do it? Why do I think the NFL should do it? Even the NBA guys are standing for the national anthem. I think it makes no sense. Okay, another big story out there. Another big story out there is that the president of Michigan State resigned as this Nassar fallout continues. And I actually think this is a messy situation. I asked the question. I'd encourage you guys to go download the podcast for Outkick the coverage. I think it was a really good show that we did this morning. Smart in a way that typically sports talk radio isn't. What's the limits of blame? What is the limits of blame? Should a president of the university get fired, even if she didn't know anything about the inappropriate actions of this guy Nassar, just because it was bad at the university? I don't think so. I think you need culpability, something other than the theory of, I am the captain of the ship and the ship crashed. I don't buy into that. I don't buy into the idea that just because you're in a position of prominence that you should be responsible for everything. Look, there are 50,000 students and grad students at Michigan State. There are over 12,000 employees. It's impossible for her to have been on top of everything. Plus, there was an investigation into Title IX, and local authorities also investigated this guy, and somehow he got away with it because he's a consummate liar. So I think that this story and the way it's been followed is about social media needing for there to be people that the mob can tear down. Now, I'm not saying that if I were hiring at another university, I would go get the leader of Michigan State to hire him at my university, because there's going to be people like, oh, what about Greg Schiano? Greg Schiano's the greatest coach in the history of mankind, and you didn't want him at Tennessee. Yeah, I didn't want him at Tennessee because he's not a very good coach, and because he was connected in some way to the Jerry Sandusky case. I wouldn't want the president of Michigan State to take over as the president of my university either. But I also don't think they should fire the Michigan State president simply because this is a huge scandal. I don't think there's tangible evidence, at least not yet. There may one day end up being tangible evidence that she was performing in a wrong fashion. And if that's the case, then you can fire her. But right now, what evidence is there that she knew anything or that she did anything? I understand that everybody on social media is mad at her because she wasn't empathetic enough, because she didn't come sit in the trial every day. But this idea that somehow firing her is solving anything is, I think, part and parcel of what's wrong with the entire process of justice in an internet age. The internet is basically a huge blame factory. And what did she do as a part of this situation that is criminal in nature? If you can't find anything that she did of a criminal nature, then I don't think she should get fired. And by the way, resign versus fired, some of you guys who distinguish between resign and fired are dumb as rocks. If you resign because you're going to be fired otherwise, that's effectively getting fired. Don't get into the distinction of resigned or fired. Don't be a fucking idiot. If you resign because you're going to be fired, then effectively you were fired. Okay? Don't understand me. Don't be after taxes guy. Don't be no trade clause guy. Don't be dumb. Don't be a pussy, and also don't be dumb. I have no idea why Tom Izzo is taking heat. I think it's a bad look for everyone who's affiliated with this story. Look, Larry Nassar is a garbage human being. I would be perfectly fine with him being hung on the courthouse steps now that he's admitted his wrongdoing, have him walk outside. I would be perfectly fine with kicking the stool out from underneath him while he's got a rope around his neck, okay? I'm not in any way defending Nassar. But what in the world has this woman who's the president actually been proven to do? Nothing. So why would you fire her? It doesn't make any sense to me. I appreciate all of you. Thursday edition Outkick the coverage in Outkick the show in the books. Go subscribe to the podcast. Share it with your friends. Tomorrow morning, Outkick the coverage will be live on podcast and live 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern on over nearly 300 AM FM stations, as well as Sirius XM, Sirius Channel 218, XM Channel 202. Don't be a pussy, DBAP boys and girls. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the show.